Good
Okay.
morning, Judge Bober. Thank you for
Good
joining us
morning.
today. We'll get right into the questioning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? When did you first join the bench?
I joined the bench in January of 2009. I was elected in November 2008, and primarily have been in the criminal division since, as far as my career on the bench. Currently, I'm on assigned to what's called Rock Court. It's the criminal defendants that have serious offenses and a prior record that would qualify them for my courtroom.
How long have you been in Rock Court?
Since early 2017.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your cultural, national, family heritage.
My family immigrated, I think it was my grandparents on both sides, to Cuba in the 1920s. They lived there. They established businesses there. My parents were born there. I was born there, and up until Castro came to power, we had a very large extended family living in Cuba.
Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and if your family faced any challenges from what you just told us.
Well, my family story is very similar to a lot of other Cuban immigrants to this country. They fled Cuba in the early 1960s. My father was an electrical engineer working for Havana Power and Light, and he basically left the country without permission, so that was difficult. And we were able to join him a few months later, and we all moved to New York. And he had to start all over. He took a job as drafting documents, and eventually did get employment as an engineer. And I grew up back and forth between New York and Florida. I think we finally returned to Florida full time in 1972. I went to Hollywood Hills High School and went to undergrad to FAU in Boca Raton, and had my law school education at Tulane University in New Orleans. And
Talking about that, what is it about your upbringing that ultimately led you to law school and to become a judge?
I just was always interested in the law and how things work with that. And I think a lot of it's just my family upbringing geared us to current events, how things work. I'm one of four brothers. Three of us became lawyers. The other brother became a doctor, so he's the black sheep of the family, I guess. But I say that facetiously. But yeah, we were very into our studies and current events, and had a lot of just fun with it growing up. And so it really wasn't a lot of thinking as far as what I wanted to do for a living. I really was always geared in this direction.
Great. Switching over now a little bit to diversity and the bench, do you believe it is important to have cultural diversity on the Broward bench? Why or why not?
I think it's very important. I think if you don't have diversity, you're going to have a lot of mistrust from the community, particularly those in the minority community, because having people with the same cultural background, people that share your story on the bench, I think promotes trust that you're going to get a fair shake in court. I think there's a long history before the current situation where people were very mistrusting of the bench because of the fact that there was a lack of diversity and perceived discrimination.
Speaking about that, we know that Broward's come quite a way in terms of having proportional representation on the bench to the minority groups of Broward. Do you believe that we have still work to do in that regard?
I think we have some, but I think, like as you said, we've come a long way. Uh, People who are of minority backgrounds are running and winning elections, which is something that didn't happen maybe 20, 30 years ago. And so I think we need to strive to continue to work on that and look to fix whatever deficiencies there are. I think we're going a long way. We're trying to uh, stress diversity training and expose people to different cultures. And I think we're really heading in that direction, the direction we should be heading.
Since you mentioned candidates, the next question, do you believe that there are any special challenges or considerations that culturally diverse candidates face when they're seeking election to the bench or appointment by the governor to the bench?
I think there's still some bias out there, and whether it's um, in the sense that people um, will, all people have biases, and they may not know they have biases, but they do. And so when someone who is of a minority community is running, that's something that they have to overcome. I think we've come a long way of people consciously putting those biases aside and voting for the most qualified candidate, because you are, like I said, you are getting minority candidates finally winning elections because they deserve to win the election.
Switching over a little bit, and you've already covered some of your past, but what kind of work did you do before becoming a judge?
Primarily in the criminal arena, I did work in civil practice for 3 years, but I spent 22 years working in the public defender's office and was a major crimes attorney in that office when I was elected to the bench.
When you became a judge, was it everything that you expected?
Uh, Pretty much. There's some surprise stuff behind the scenes that you never see. I end up in my division doing a lot of post conviction work, which is very time consuming sometimes, and that's something that you don't see when you're in the courtroom. And but the I spent a lot of time as a lawyer in the courtroom, so I had a fairly good idea of what it was, of what challenges a judge would have, and I think I was well prepared when I did take the bench. But it's always a little different when you're on the other side and you adjust.
So when you did become a judge, were you first appointed by the governor or were you elected by the
No,
people?
I was elected. I ran. I was still working in the public defender's office, and I ran for judge, which was challenging, juggling both, and was able to win election.
Tell us a little bit about that process, and were there any hurdles for you being someone of Hispanic heritage?
Um, I'm did not face a lot of challenges because of that. For one thing, my name is not a clearly Hispanic name, so a lot of people didn't realize that I was Hispanic. It still kind of amuses me when I'm on the bench because people come in front of me, they don't realize that I'm Cuban, and they'll be whispering to each other in front of me in Spanish, not realizing that I understand everything they're saying to each other. So that's always sometimes amusing.
That's
Um,
great.
but it's a lot of work running. It was both good and bad. It was bad in that it's a grind. It is a grind to be out there going to all these events all over the county. But you meet so many people and you learn so much. You visit places you didn't know existed, even though you've been here for years and years. It really was a reward, even as tough as it was, really was a rewarding experience, win or lose, to be out there meeting a lot of fantastic people.
So tell us, the next question says, have you experienced or witnessed discrimination in your lifetime or been the victim of it? And what have you learned from those experiences?
Um, you do witness it. I think you see it. You see people treated not the way they should be. And my background as a public defender, I got to see a lot of discrimination as far as my clients and how they were treated, and you try to fight for them. As a judge, you have to step in and make sure that you don't tolerate that and inadvertently rubber stamp discrimination. And those that do discriminate, you need to make sure that the appropriate actions are taken by the court to address that issue.
The next question says that aside from being well-rounded, dedicated, and hardworking, are there any other qualities that you believe are important for a judge to have?
I think you need to realize perceptions of people, and if you dismiss people or without listening to them, if you're rude to people, if you don't give people an opportunity to uh, state their case, state their grievances, you're going to end up with a very angry people that don't believe in the system. I have, it's been my experience that uh, when I give people the opportunity to express themselves and treat them with respect, that even if I rule against them, they seem to take it much better because at least they know they were treated fairly, and or at least they got a full hearing and their due process.
Do you have any role models? And if so, how did they become your role models?
Um, well, I've had role models in a lot of different areas. I mean, my parents were role models as far as growing up and work ethic and how I wanted to be as a person. As far as career wise, there were a number of judges over the years that I had a tremendous amount of respect for, and could point to that. If I became a judge, that's the type of person I'd want to be.
When a judge takes on an intern, certified or not, is there an ideal type of intern that you're looking for? Someone who listens, someone who's active, who wants to do things. What's the ideal person for you to mentor?
I've had a good number of interns over the years, and particularly those that are inquisitive. And I encourage them, like, if you see stuff in court and you want to ask questions about what happened, or why did the lawyer do that, or why did you do this, I always encourage them to engage me. I love people that were paying attention and that were inquisitive, and so that you learn by watching, and sometimes you learn what you should do. Sometimes you learn what you shouldn't do, which is just as important. So I've enjoyed it over the years, and I've had a good group of overall of interns that were inquisitive, that really made the most of their time here.
Well, we appreciate you letting us into your life, your background, and thank you for answering our questions, Judge. That's all we have for you today. Have a great day, and we're going to end.
Same to you. It's been a pleasure.
Take care.